What's up, Wausome friends? Welcome back for another episode of Keep It Wausome. Today's guest is Michelle Goetsch, and Michelle created the ERbin recycling app. This is basically an app that lets you scan an item and find out exactly how and where to recycle it. It varies from community to community, so this app helps make it easier. Michelle and I work together at the Wausome Daily Herald Sports Department, and she's since become an entrepreneur among a number of other things. So we kind of talked about the never-ending work life of an entrepreneur, finding balance between work and family. That's a challenge, and just the challenge of creating an app in central Wisconsin. You know, I know she was driving down to Madison to meet with mentors because we don't have a lot of that experience here, and I'm hoping we're going to grow that soon. I learned a ton from her. I think she's an awesome person. So please give a warm, awesome welcome to Michelle Goetsch. Okay, so we were talking about the life of an entrepreneur.
Yeah, they don't really have one outside of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Maybe it's the cord. There we go. Okay. Yeah. Well, let's go back and just kind of talk about this ERbin recycling app. Tell me about how this all came about.
Sure. So honestly, it's all about just being frustrated that I just wanted to recycle right. Like I just wanted to know that I was putting the right materials in my recycling bin and that they were getting recycled. Mm-hmm. There's so much PR these days that, you know, materials aren't getting recycled or that there's so much contamination, which is true. And so I spent like the better part of a year learning about the whole material recovery industry and understanding what were true, what were fallacies, you know, what was I supposed to be doing with recyclables, and just learned that ultimately recycling education for the public has just never changed in years and decades, and it needs to change because a lot has changed in the industry.
It changes like all the time. You like never know what you're supposed to like. You'll get really like, you know, I found like for me, I'll get really like adamant, like, no, this has to be this can go or this can't. Like a week later, it's different. It feels like.
Yeah, well, there's so many points of change, meaning like packaging itself changes. You go to a grocery store and packaging is changing all the time. It's made out of new materials all the time. So even products that you're used to buying and recycling, you know, maybe the new iterations of that packaging isn't acceptable anymore. Your hauler changes. Your hauler determines where they're bringing their materials, and that's all driven by pricing. You know, where can they get the best price? And then, of course, you know, a year ago, basically, when China decided to stop accepting U.S. recovered materials, I mean, that just hit our market so hard that markets all of a sudden were changing. We were selling to different countries, to different buyers, and all of that determines what is actually getting recycled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and then how did you take that idea to say, like, I'm going to start an app? And how long ago was this, by the way?
Well, so this is just into the new year in 2018, I think is really when I started thinking about it. And I would say a lot went into, I guess, in terms of my professional background leading into this. You know, I've been working for basically 5 years supporting UW system faculty members write research grants to support their research. And so I was very used to and excited by seeing this process of a person with an amazing idea who was so smart in some niche topic come up with just some brilliant project that they needed funding for, and then finding a way to sell that project to a funder to get funding. And that whole process it's exciting. It's hard. I knew it was hard, but I was like, I think I'm ready to fund my own idea and do my own thing. And so I think I had learned about the Idea Advance grant, seed funding grant, through being a grant writer for faculty. It's available in the state of Wisconsin to anyone with a UW affiliation, specifically with the non-UW-Madison institutions. And so I knew there was a grant opportunity for some seed funding. I know how to write grants, and I had an idea, and I guess that's where it really got started.
Yeah. And then so you get this idea, but then like you have to implement it. And I think you found out how difficult this can be.
Right. I think that you have no way to prepare yourself. And I think that that's a good thing, because if you knew at the beginning how hard it was going to be, you would not do it.
But go ahead, keep talking.
And it's not to say it's not fun, it's just hard. So you have to be like ready and willing to work really hard, to be really stressed. I tell people it's scary, it's amazing. It's kind of like when you have kids, you have no idea what you're doing, and you are trying to like incubate this thing that again that you've never had to do before. It's just a learning process.
Right.
Yeah. It's a lot, but it's also fun, and it's also you drive your own, ship. And if you are a person who is just always motivated and interested in change and wanting to go and do and be something different, then it's a track that's worthwhile.
So what does it look like when you say, okay, I'm going to start this app, and it, like, then what? How do you take it from there?
Right. So, I would say that, so the idea was not always just an app. The idea at the beginning was so much data exists.
Yeah.
You can get information about anything. Why can't I know how to recycle right? I'm smart. I bet I have a master's degree. Like, I care. Why can't I recycle rice? And so I'm like, how can we think about using data and mobile devices differently and technology differently to just transform recycling education? And so the app is powered by what is the real magic in ERbin, which, by the way, I think we're going to change our name to Better Bin. So if anyone wants to tell us if they like that name better.
ERbin versus Better Bin.
Better Bin, yeah. So the idea is that if we have all this information, if you go to a Walmart website, you see a packaging, you see a product name, you see a price, you see so nutritional information. Like, why can't there be packaging information on there? And so I went on this journey to learn about how all that data is managed in the world, in the country. Then trying to learn the other side of it, which is, where is my hauler taking my materials, and how does that determine what types of materials are actually being recycled? And so you pair this information about product data and packaging with the material recovery industries, like ecosystem of where materials end up and who they're being sold to. You pair that together and you come up with this database that is ultimately going to inform multiple different products. The easiest one to talk about is the app, because you can hold a phone in your hand, you can text search for an item or scan a UPC barcode and get recycling information based on where you live. It's an easy way to talk about the database that we've built. But I think what's almost more exciting for me is when we finally established this partnership with a grocery retailer who can see our vision for you buy products at a grocery store, either online or brick and mortar, every week, right? You get a receipt. They have this point of sale system that holds so much data. If their data is paired with ours, we can tell consumers how to be responsibly disposing of packaging the second they leave that store, or the second they press send on their Instacart app. We can tell them, okay, you just bought this product. This is how it should be properly disposed of. And I think the more ways that education gets to people, the easier and more normal it will be to change behaviors and get them to recycle more and right.
And how did business owners respond to that? Those grocery store chains, like when you said, hey, I want to do this thing, I want to collect this data, how did they respond? Was it challenging to get them on board, or were people pretty receptive?
Well, so the first person I ever went to with this idea was Melissa Johnson. She's the solid waste, or the Marathon County Solid Waste Director, among many other things. She is just supportive of innovation and just building community in Central Wisconsin. Right. And so it couldn't have been a more perfect person for me to walk into her office and say, listen, I know nothing about recycling, but I'm really passionate about it, and this is my idea. What do you think? And she just started asking me questions and pointing me in different directions to different contexts. Like, you should talk to this person. You could learn here. You could learn here.
Yeah, she's a great starting point for sure.
She's just amazing. And just what's more important about someone accepting your idea is someone saying, regardless of what your idea is right now, I can see you're passionate and I'm willing to support you. Like that is what takes every entrepreneur to the next level, because your idea can change so many times. But if you have someone that says, I recognize your passion and your intellect and your abilities to make this happen, here's how I can support you, then, I mean, that just gives you a lifeline.
So how long ago was that you reached out to Melissa?
Yeah, that was in like March of 2018. Honestly, it was right around the time when China, we were getting a lot of PR that China was going to shut down their ports. And so it was a point in time when PR around recycling and communities was kind of at an all-time low, to be honest. Yeah. So there was just a strong public need, a need that was shown in public, that there was a problem that existed that needed solving. So so Melissa, and then of course she pointed me just to so Corey Tomchuk, who owns IRO, and then Amanda Heffley, who's the Portage County Solid Waste Director, and Valerie Parker, who is the recycling coordinator at the Village of Weston, and just pointing me to people who Melissa knew who were also passionate about making change and who were doers and could help me. And you cannot do this alone. I don't care what your idea is and how passionate and how smart you are. You can't do it alone. You need so many different types of people and supports. And so all of those people have come together to honestly play a role in pushing this idea forward into an actual startup.
Wow. Yeah, and like you have to start hiring developers to make this app. So you said it didn't necessarily start as an app, is that?
Right. So I knew I wanted to use data differently is really how it began. Yeah. And then the idea, honestly, people kind of said, well, hey, if you're thinking about that, then why don't you do this? And why can't people scan UPC barcodes? And I'm thinking, that's fantastic. What product doesn't have a UPC barcode, that you buy in a store? And again, it's just people kind of fuel your idea. Right. But once it gets into the actual tech development, I mean, I am a writer and a communicator by trade. I have no idea how to code anything. And so that again was putting out feelers to see, is what I'm doing doable? How do I find a tech person to support this? And that is when I sent a random message via LinkedIn to, I'm blanking, Scott Resnick. He's the one of COO or something of Hardin Design and Development. And Scott actually went to school at Wausome East. I learned after I had met him and called him and started asking basically for mentorship. And then he told his director, John Hardin, about my idea. And I think at that time, Hardin thought it was kind of cool and was like, hey, we'll take a risk on the startup. And so he really built the original version of the app. Wow. Yeah. It's all about asking questions to people. You have to be very willing to understand you don't know everything and ask questions. Yeah.
Well, and I know you're particularly suited to asking questions, since you and I work together at the Daily Herald Sports Department. What are your thoughts about looking back on those times?
Oh my gosh, I think that there's just something to be said for experience and not jumping into that job that you feel like is your career, because so I was on the sports desk, and I literally moved to Wausau from New York City. I knew no one, absolutely no one in the city of Wausau. And immediately I was thrown into high school sports and interviewing students and student athletes and coaches. And you immediately just have to feel comfortable talking to people, asking questions, seeing what other people are passionate about and smart about and trying to ask them questions. And so, that learning how to interview people was a huge benefit to me feeling comfortable asking questions. Yeah.
Did you have that background? What did you go to school for?
I have a bachelor's degree from the University of Michigan in English. So again, just like writing is a trade.
Mine was UWSP, but
So and then master's in life sciences communication. So I think after our stint at the Daily Herald, I just realized I was very passionate about environmental responsibility, and I wanted to use what one talent I thought I had, which was writing, and to do something different with it and to support my passions for supporting the environment and the earth. And I guess that's really where I just learned that we are lay people and we don't know all this technical jargon and how to read statistics and newspaper stories and how do you frame a story about the earth that is going to get someone excited about it who maybe might not be or just might not be they can't, they have to be able to read at like a third grade level, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you just have to take into consideration all the different learning types and levels of education, and know that you can reach all those people with one message. It's just you have to know how to craft it. And that's like, I honestly, that's what I came away with from grad school. Maybe I paid too much money for that.
Well, that's a challenge. I mean, that's a challenge. I face that challenge all the time, stuff with city government or county government. I mean,
It's complex.
Trying to find a way to make that both interesting and, first you have to understand it really well, and then you have to be able to explain it to other people and in a way that they'll understand it. And it's really hard.
It's really hard.
My first year and a half as a government reporter, I hated it. Because I was just like, God, I don't understand this stuff, and I have to turn around and try to explain this to other people.
Right.
Yeah, I think there was a flip after a certain point in time where I started to really get into it, and now I'm like super into all the things I write about. But it took some time because it is a challenge. Yeah,
it's a challenge because everyone has a different interest in a topic. For some, recycling is about the earth. For some, it's about economics and it's about jobs and jobs in our community. And for some, it's about the landfill, what's going into our landfill. For some, it is about packaging and packaging design for an engineer. For some, it's about a brand who's thinking about how to best sell their product to a specific type of person. I mean, so you have to think about all those different types of perspectives. And now I'm at the point where I'm trying to, convince investors, that this is a good idea. And that's where you do have to think way beyond your passion for just environmental responsibility and think about, what's in it for the investor, which is a lot about money.
That's an interesting step for sure. Yeah. Well, can you talk about the early iterations of the app? And we should spell it out. It's ERbin. It's like ERbin.
Right. And that's one reason we want to change the name because we always have to explain that I wanted it to be like a hospital ER, for your recycling bin.
Oh, yeah.
But when you're a startup,
kind of like a WebMD for your recycling bin,
yes,
right?
Yes, exactly. But when you're a startup, you have to move so quickly. You cannot spend a year coming up with the perfect name, nor can you spend thousands of dollars with some naming agency. So you come up with a name, you create your WordPress website as fast as you can, and you run with it for as long as you can until you realize there are legal costs that come with changing your name. And so ERbin, ERbin is the current name, but honestly, it was amazing seeing my idea when I talked to a designer, then see it in an app. The second it was live, there were tons of problems, every problem you can think of. It was horrible. And it was very stressful. And to this day, there are still glitches. And we're honestly in the process of transitioning from an app today, so people kind of go to the Google store or Google Play or the App Store. But the next iteration of apps, you will never have to do that. They're called progressive web applications, PWAs. A lot of banks use them already, where you log in. You can log in on your computer, on a mobile device. You can download it if you want to your phone, but you don't have to. You can always just go to a link, and you never have to really sign in necessarily. You always have access to it. So that's the next version of the app. And our new version will be live in the next couple of weeks. But honestly, I think with every product, you're constantly learning and talking to users, seeing the technical glitches, iterating and changing and trying to make it better and better. I don't think that ever ends for any product.
Was there ever a point where you were, like you said, all these things go wrong, you're constantly fixing glitches. Did it ever get to a point where it's super overwhelming, and did you ever think oh my God, why am I doing this?
It is overwhelming. I have that thought 10 times a day at least. Really? Honestly, there is so much in a startup. When you work for an organization that has, even let's say a small organization, 20 people, you have someone in finance and accounting, you have someone in sales, you have someone in marketing, you have someone in product development, you have a tech person, and you have to be all of those things until you can afford to pay people to help you with those things. And so
kind of like being a podcast starter and fiddling around with someone else's microphones.
yes, I mean, you have to learn how to do everything at least a little bit well.
People are wondering what I'm talking about. We're in our new studio, which is really exciting.
It is cool.
And all the equipment is my producer's, and my producer is out of town. And so I had to try to remember what he told me and how to set it up. And I think I got it right. God, I hope so. It's moving. So yeah.
Right.
But yeah, I know it's
you have to wear
scary,
every hat possible, and you have to make lots of mistakes. And then eventually you get to a point where you realize where you can spend money on people who can help you. And I knew all along that I wouldn't always be able to have a contracted developer. That was just the way to get it off the ground. And so late in 2019, I really worked hard to find a developer who would want to come on board, like have the passion, want to grow this into something. And so I've been super fortunate to meet a guy down in Madison named Ben Hansen, and he is an entrepreneur through and through. He has more ideas than just working for ERbin, but he also is passionate about tech and how to use tech to have an impact on the earth. And so he can see my vision, and I can feel that. And to go from being kind of yourself and 10 students to a person who's on board with you, who wants to have an equity stake in your company, it's such a sense of relief. And then in addition to Ben, so about 6 months ago, I'd met also a guy named down in Madison named Ian Miller, and he is a data scientist and is so smart, like wicked smart. And all he does is data all day, every day. And so he is helping to create our machine learning processes that will eventually make this database into the magical thing that it will be. Right now it's small, but he's creating like algorithms and such to grow it. And so now having Ian and Ben and myself, and we have that core team with the technical capabilities to actually grow this into what I think it can be. And then of course we have an amazing group of honestly anywhere between 5 and 10, depending on the week, students from UW-Stevens Point who are just working on a million different things. So honestly, we've gone from like late 2019 to me wondering, who is going to join me on this journey, to now where we have a core team and a vision. And I think in the last 2 weeks, I think we've had 4 cold emails saying, hey, we're really interested in this. And so it's like you feel like you're moving so slowly, but honestly, you're moving so fast. And so the whole from no team to problems with the product, to changing your product, to implementing your product, to helping you, making sure your customers are happy. It's insane. It's awesome, but it's insane.
So do you have investors now? I know you were talking about going through more investment, but you must have investors to start with, huh?
So I am so lucky to have that background as a professional grant writer. And so I've built the business basically on grant funding and co-founder investment and a little bit of revenue. Nice. So Idea Advance has 2 stages of funding. Stage 1 that kind of gets you off the ground. Stage 2 is where you've kind of proven you've gotten to a certain point and you're able to meet certain milestones. And with that funding, we had to bring like a cash match to the table. And between people like Melissa Johnson, who saw at the beginning that this could be something, and she had a budget, and our project met objectives, the Marathon County Solid Waste Department, like a little bit of revenue from people like her to launch our beta test in the village of Weston, little bits of sponsorship from some of the haulers like Advanced Disposal and Waste Management, more grant funding from other organizations that support female entrepreneurs. So grant funding, a little bit of revenue, and co-founder, cash investment from myself. And I mean, that doesn't mean I'm getting paid. Like I haven't paid myself in a long, long time, but, So the next phase is we've hit milestones. We're gonna eventually run out of money, and so before we can get enough customers, and so the next stint as a startup is to go seek out investment, and that can mean a lot of different things. It can mean our first step is going to be some crowdfunding, which I'm really excited about. This kind of goes off on a tangent, but do you have a question?
That's good. No, tangents are good. Tell me about the crowdfunding.
Yeah, so crowdfunding. So everyone knows Shark Tank, the show where entrepreneurs go and pitch their idea. So Wisconsin, like regionally, has their own version of Shark Tank. It's called Project Pitch It. And I taped an episode on Halloween last year in 2019. And the episode is actually going to air tomorrow. It's Saturday, March 7th, right?
Yeah.
7th, I think, is tomorrow. So, but it's not going to air in the Wausau area. It's only going to air down in the Milwaukee area.
Gotcha.
And I think it will air live in a couple of weeks. And I will definitely make sure to let everyone know.
Oh, for sure.
But it's going to kind of be the launch of our crowdfunding campaign so that investors can and people can truly see my pitch to actual sort of investors are called moguls on the Project Pitch It. Yeah. But you get up live, the TV cameras are there, you're in full on camera makeup, and you do your pitch just as you would like on Shark Tank, but the moguls are much nicer
That's
to you.
good. Tell folks what the show is called again.
Project Pitch It.
Project Pitch It.
Yeah.
Okay. And do they air their episodes online too, or are they on?
Yes. So that's how the full episode will be online. Okay. And so in the next week, we'll launch our crowdfunding campaign on a platform called ifundwomen.org, which obviously supports female entrepreneurs. Right. And part of our pitch will be on that platform, so people can see the pitch, and it's a way to publicize the crowdfunding campaign too. So, nice. So yeah.
Is it only on that platform? You're not doing like Kickstarter or any of the other?
No,
I don't know which ones you go
yeah,
through.
there's so many.
Yeah, there are so many.
I did a lot of research and just felt like this was the best fit for us, and so yeah. So crowdfunding first to give us a little bridge funding, and then some additional grant funding we're still applying for. And then the next step is kind of friends and family, sort of if we need to ask friends and family for little pieces. Well, in our mind, big pieces, of investment for equity stake in the company. And after that, if you still need a little money, there's angel investors. And so for us, there are some very specific organizations who are equity investors in sustainably minded companies who are trying to make an impact on the earth and do social good. And so we're kind of targeting those investors. And hopeful that there'll be some bridge funding so that we have enough runway to where we have enough customers to support our operations and then grow from there.
So where's the revenue coming from on the app?
Yeah, sure. So for the app, we sell annual subscriptions to our customers. And right now, the word customer is a little bit nebulous, but it can mean a community, like a municipality. We just pitched to the city of Wausau to try to bring the app to the city of Wausau. But there are multiple financial stakeholders in a municipal recycling program. So obviously the municipality pays a hauler a contracted amount to take care of people's recycling and waste. And so for example, in Wausau, their hauler is Harders. And then Harders takes their materials to a processor that's up in Eagle River called Eagle Waste. And so it's like from the municipality, the hauler, and the MRF sort of all have a financial stake in people recycling right. And so sometimes we do annual app subscriptions to sort of the municipality or a combination of the municipality and the hauler and the MRF. And just the subscription gives free access to residents in that community, access to the app. Another definition of community right now is college campuses. So we launched on the Edgewood campus down in Madison and then up here in at UW Stevens Point. And so that is like a fantastic quote unquote community because there's a very finite number of products that students are having to make decisions about recycling, students and staff. So they have their dining services, their cafeterias, their coffee places, fast food restaurants in the area.
Topper's Pizza, cardboard box.
Right. Convenience store on campus. And so we're able to very quickly create that database for that community. And here we're talking about a college campus. So we would sell an annual subscription to the campus. And so right now, we are getting some grant funding through like UW Stevens Point's Green Fund. And then the other part of the revenue comes from sponsors. And so we're so excited. So Rocket Industrial is a packaging solutions provider here, headquartered in Wausome, but an international organization.
Right.
And they have a mission to package with less. And so obviously I latched right onto that. I'm like, that's, we want to be involved with a company who wants to package with less. And so I went to Ryan Gallagher, their president, and their marketing director, Bob Stevens, and I said, hey, I'm, a local entrepreneur. This is my idea. This is what we're trying to do. To bring the app to the city of Wausome, it'd be helpful to have a sponsor. So they get their logo in the app. And honestly, every time someone scans or searches for a product, Rocket Industrial shows up as sponsoring the solution, and they sponsored our waste audit that we did with the city in October. And so through sponsorship revenue, we can charge less to the municipality, which is helpful for the municipality to be able to implement the app. And so there's the contracts, there's the sponsors, and then eventually we will sell, there'll be ad revenue from brands and who are selling products in the app. So every time if you're searching for Kraft macaroni and cheese, and Kraft is like, hey, we want our products to show up at the top, so stuff like that. And then ultimately it's about selling access to our data though. So I talked about working with grocery retailers. And so the API in my layperson's terms, it's just an access point for a grocery store to have access to our data. And so we would sell access to our data to those retailers. And that's really in the long term, the revenue that I want to be able to supplement subscriptions to communities. So it's a lower cost for communities to help their residents recycle right.
So right now with the subscription, there's a difference between the subscription and just if I use the app, I can use it basically
totally
anywhere,
free.
right? Like if I'm in Kalamazoo and I pull it up, didn't pull that out of a hat or anything.
Yeah.
But if I'm in Kalamazoo and I pull it up, I can use it. What's the difference if the community has a subscription?
Right. So it's important to know that your recycling guidelines for where you live are based on where your materials end up. And so that's why we have to work directly with the community to know where their materials are ending up, to be able to have their residents get the right information. So, for example, the city of Wausome's materials go up to Eco Waste. If you live in the village of Weston, your materials are taken from Advanced Disposal to the Portage County MRF. So they're two different processing facilities. And so when you log into the ERbin app, you would choose Village of Weston, or you would choose City of Wausome, or you would choose Edgewood, College, or you would choose UW Stevens Point. And once you choose that, it pulls you kind of into your own portal where you're going to get directions that are specific to where your materials are being processed.
What happens if you're in Kalamazoo or wherever and you don't have that municipality isn't partner with?
Right.
Like
So
what are you able to see? This kind of general information?
No, I never want any general information, because
information.
that is where we are now. And I despise it. It gives me anxiety. You cannot just give someone general information about how to recycle right, because I don't know where your materials are ending up. So I often get the question, hey, what do I do with this? And I'm like, okay, well, where do you live? And I try to understand what the situation is, but I often say I'm not exactly sure because I don't know who's processing your materials. But that's why we're here in the first place, right? Yes, exactly. So if you were in Kalamazoo, which shout out to Kalamazoo because I'm from Battle Creek, which is right next to there, and you could download the app, absolutely, and you could choose a community, and you could start seeing the information for that community, but by no means is that information accurate for your recycling guidelines.
It seems like recycling is such a mess.
It is a mess, and it is I think it's really important for people to know that that ERbin and recycling education is like one part of the continuum, the ecosystem, whatever you want to call it, of problems and needs in the recycling ecosystem. I mean, the beginning of it has to do with, manufacturers and brands and what they're choosing to use as packaging materials. And then it's about the packaging manufacturers and what new materials are they bringing in? How are they thinking about packaging? And then there's consumerism. We want to buy stuff, right? And you want to make sure your chips are crispy and salty. And we want to make sure that, some foods stay, like bread stays moist in a bag. Like we as consumers want different things. And if we want that, it comes with packaging. Like it's a choice that we're making. Right. And so there's us as consumers. We have decisions we can be making. And then there's choices that, that haulers and municipalities and processors, and do they have the money to have X type of equipment that could allow them to better process and then could allow them to sell more, but it costs money and it's a business. And there's just so much that goes into just the choice to use, consumerism, packaging, where waste is being diverted, if it's going to a landfill, if it's going to an incinerator, if it's going to a recycling facility, if it's going to the ocean, there's a lot. And I know I can't solve all those problems, but I knew that I could play a part in the education side. Yeah. So that's where we chose to go.
So it seems like the easiest way is just to use less in the first place.
Yes. The choice is always to use less. Always to use less first, reuse second, and recycle, which is third. But I also have 2 young children, and I know, my husband and I both work, so I know how difficult it is to make those decisions on a daily basis to use less and to reuse. There are just so many situations that you have quick decision to make. You got to go. Someone's hungry. Someone just puked. You know what I mean? Like there are just quick decisions, and you can't always make the one that's like best for the earth. You'd have to do what's best for you at that moment. So I only preach it as much as I know as I can act it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What was it like being on that TV show?
I think that the weirdest part was the makeup. And now that I talk to, news anchors, it's like you feel so caked in makeup, you feel so unnatural. So then you feel a little awkward. But honestly, when you are so passionate about something and just have, exactly what message you're trying to get across, honestly, it's not hard. Yeah. If you're on Shark Tank where you are really looking for, hundreds, if not millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars of investment, it'd probably be scarier. I knew going into it that there was, $10,000 on the line. So I could feel a little more comfortable messing up. And I knew that they were supporting us as entrepreneurs versus trying to tear us down, which is what they do on Shark Tank.
Yeah, they weren't like the Simon Cowell and American
Idol.
No,
they're very, very kind, just wanting to support you. But also, as a public presentation of my passion and my intellect and my know-how in the industry and my ability to, start a business. And so you want to be taken seriously too.
Yeah. And I imagine you really had to think about, how you would present things, what you'd leave off, what you talk about. I don't know how long your pitch was, but I can imagine it was pretty short. It's not like being able to sit on a podcast and just talk about everything, right? So you had to be really... I imagine you had to really develop your elevator pitch.
Yes, and constantly still to this day iterating on it because you only have really 10 seconds to get someone's attention. In a pitch, you can have a minute, maybe 2 minutes. And so you are constantly refining, how am I talking about this business? And I'm still not good at it. And it will still take a long time, but... the shorter amount of time you have, the harder it is to get your message across. And so yes, lots of practice, lots of talking to myself in front of a mirror.
What's a day-to-day look like for you?
The day-to-day is very early because I have a finite amount of time to work with being a working mother. So, I always try to work from like 5:30 to 7:30 in the morning, knowing that from like 7:30 to 8:30-ish, I have to get my kids ready out the door, school and daycare and stuff. So I know I can't dive back into work until about 8:30 or 9 o'clock. And then from 9 to, I try to make it to like noon or 1. It's just madness of work. I try to get a workout in sometime in the afternoon, but usually it happens like once or twice a week only. And then work until 4. And then I switch my hats to being a mom. And it's incredibly hard to do that because you're thinking about all the stuff you didn't get accomplished. But you know that you owe your kids and your family that time in the evening. And so then you're a mom, and then you put them to bed, and then you have to make the decision of, are you going to be a wife and talk to your husband, or are you going to go back to be an entrepreneur and get on your computer? And you're constantly having to stress about making that decision because you know, those relationships are the most important thing in your life. Right. But you also have expectations from others of, you're trying to, you know, you are a business owner, you have to make things happen, and you have to make them happen quickly. And so there's that constant stress. And there's a question that Guy Raz always asks at the How I Built This podcast for NPR to entrepreneurs. He always asks how much of your success is luck and how much of this is hard work. And where I think luck really comes in is when you have that social support, your family support, the love and support behind you to give you the space to not be present all the time when you should. You know, how many dinners are you making a week? How many, you know, PTA meetings? How many, you know, are you having a date night every week? Like, to have people in your life that will allow you the space to disengage from that, like, is where the luck comes in. Right. Because, I mean, and like people, my in-laws, they watch our kids, you know, like every Friday or every Thursday and Friday in the summer. And, you know, if I didn't have that kind of support, if I didn't have a husband who said, hey, it's okay, I know you're passionate about this and I know you want to make this happen. You don't have to have a salary for a year. And, you know, I know you'll be busy in the evenings. It's like, it's a huge sacrifice for your family. And luck is having people who are willing to give you that sacrifice. So
I think that passion plays into it too, though. You know, if you were just kind of ho-hum about this, I don't think people would be helping you in the same way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're saying, like, you really want to do that? You know, it's clear how much you care about this. Like, it's really obvious. You know, when I interviewed you for the Buzz for City Pages last summer, and then now too, I mean, your passion comes through, and I think people pick up on that.
Yeah, sometimes it scares me a little because I'm thinking, do they only support me because they see how passionate I am, or are they supporting me because they actually think I have a good idea and that I can go through with this? I am passionate about everything. I mean, like I'll go to a farmer's market with you and I could look at that produce all day long. It's just so beautiful. And I'm like, your producers, I have so much passion for them. But you cannot be an entrepreneur without passion. You just can't.
Well, I remember you worked really hard when you were in sports too. Like, you know, I think we all kind of had to. Which, you know, getting on a tangent maybe, but isn't it kind of sad that there just is no sports department now? Yeah,
it's heartbreaking because I know as a former student athlete, how meaningful.
Yeah, you played volleyball in both high school and college, right?
I didn't play in college. I played every sport. I played soccer, volleyball. I mean, as a grown woman, I actually got full on hockey gear and played, you know, hockey.
Did you really?
Mm-hmm. And so,
that's awesome.
Yeah. So
did you do that here?
Yeah. There were a bunch of hockey moms this was years ago, but we would get our ice time late, 10 o'clock on like a Thursday night, and you'd gear up and you'd go play hockey. Wow. Yeah, it was awesome. I would, if I had time, I would still do it. But, yeah, those kids work so hard. Those coaches put so much in. The parents put so much into dealing. I mean, now I coach youth soccer and I'm in the whole, oh my gosh, you know, what extracurricular activities do we have? And so many people put so much time and effort into it. It is sad that people don't get recognized for it.
It is really sad. Like, I mean, that was always so important to like the parents and the students and the grandparents. And, you know, I remember when I worked there, people would say stuff like, you know, like people from news would come over and say, well, we know that people are really picking up the paper for what you guys are doing. And, you know, maybe reading the news as an afterthought. And, you know, we can talk about whether that's a good thing or not. But it was really surprising when the way they just cut out basically all the sports departments. But
yeah. It is really sad, but I've been I'm lucky because I curl, so that's another sport that I do.
Oh,
But
you're curling now, huh?
I curl, and I've curled for a long time, and Pete Susans is a curler, obviously the former West
Pete
coach,
Susans,
and what Storm, the Central or what are they? Yeah, Central Wisconsin Storm.
Oh, is he
the girls team?
He's coaching the Storm
coaching
now?
the Storm, and it's just I
He's
can
a legendary
he
Wausome coach.
yes, and
Shout
it's
out
just
to Pete Susans.
Pete Susans, yes, and I learned so much from him, and still seeing that passion in someone who cares so much about not just the game but the people and the kids who are involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're inspired by those type of people.
He's a curler now?
Am. And yeah, he's a curler. Yep,
Right.
and so is his wife.
I mean, I gotta think he's just resisting the urge to just like check somebody.
No,
the stone's gonna hit.
curling's a lot different, but it's more strategic. But
That's true.
but yeah, those people in our community who are just passionate, and yeah, it's hard to see that they don't get the recognition that they kind of did when there was a local sports page, for sure.
That's a bummer.
For sure.
Well, I guess it kind of goes to what you're talking about building a skill set, So while you were there, you were kind of building a skill set that helped lead to what you're doing now. And I guess that's the way you got to think about some of these things. Like, jobs don't exist forever. Businesses don't exist forever,
Yeah.
I mean, entire industries don't.
Oh my gosh. And that's going to change so much. I just think that I always wanted to do more. I was always passionate about whatever I was doing or learning, and always wanting to learn. And I honestly learned a lot from my work with like local food and Farm Shed. I know you had Lane on from Siren Shrub, learning from people like her to see that if you don't step up and do something about what you are passionate about, no one else is going to do it.
That's right.
And that's when I had my idea. Yeah, okay, I don't know how to recycle right. I want to. But then I just started doing research and trying to see ways that people were trying to have an impact on that. And I just wasn't seeing anything special. I mean, there's different labels on packaging. And there are some really great nonprofits out there, trying to do different education and cart tagging. But I'm like, technology can change this so quickly. And I'm like, I don't necessarily know how to do it, but I recognize that it should be done differently.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I was like, if no one else is doing this, then like, why not me?
Well, we did a story a year ago called "You Suck at Recycling."
Yes.
And we still get comments to this day like, well, wait a minute, you guys said it's this way, but we actually found out it's this way. Yeah, because it's constantly changing, and it depends on where you live too. Like,
yes.
I'm glad I didn't have to do that story, by the way.
I remember, because I think actually Pat interviewed me for that. I don't think it ended up getting in there.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I think it was going to be a sidebar. And I'm kind of glad he did, because then I got to put it in the business section, so that's okay.
But yeah, I struggled with that headline so much, because there are a lot of barriers to being able to recycle right.
Yeah, it's not really anyone's fault that we suck.
It's not, but
it
isn't. I truly.
I think it's a little attention grabbing, but it's like I think it was to illustrate the point that like you might think you're doing it right, but you're probably not.
Right.
Not your fault, but we're all doing it wrong. I'm sure I'm still doing it wrong.
Yeah, I feel like I am too, honestly. Because I know the kind of ifs, ands, and buts that I've gotten in conversations from the processors, saying, if this situation, if that situation, but, and so it's all about, and I don't, haven't implemented the app yet for my community, so I haven't been able to get the instructions as I'd liked for myself and how I'm recycling, but, yeah, it's startup life. It is a journey. It's hard. Right. It's exciting. You learn from so many different people, and it's absolutely necessary to make it anywhere.
What would you tell 2018 Michelle if you could go back in time and she made 2018 Michelle's going, I want to do this app?
Oh boy. So first of all, I wouldn't change anything. What I would change, and I hope I can get through this without like tearing up, but so Amy Gannon recently passed away. She's a co-founder of Doyen down in Madison. They are an organization that supports female entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs of color. And it was a pretty big story. Actually, her and her 13-year-old daughter died in a helicopter crash in Hawaii over the holidays.
Oh my gosh.
Over Christmas. And the 2018 Michelle went into her office just with completely naive to everything that goes into a startup. And instead of her asking me all these questions and have you done this and that and do you know this person and how much money do you have and well your idea this that and the other, she just said, what do you need?
Wow, that's good.
And how can I help? And what are your barriers? And look, now when entrepreneurs come to me, that's what I do, because you can throw questions at me all day that I'm not going to have good answers to, because I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow and I don't know what's going to happen in a week, and I'm not an expert in everything about my business. But for new entrepreneurs now, I just say, are you passionate? Do you love this? Do you know this? What do you need? And I think that's so important for mentors, especially in central Wisconsin where startups just aren't really a thing.
There's not a big ecosystem for it. I think Brian Gunning from Wausome Wafers, who I've had on here, he found that out kind of the hard way. There's a lot of resources for the smaller type businesses, the more traditional, opening up a store or a food stand or something, but growing he was starting a business that had national implications, and he was distributing nationally at one point, but there wasn't, for one thing, he was doing this almost 10 years ago, when there wasn't the same venture capital or angel investing that there is in the area now that you have access to. I mean, it's definitely better than it was back then. And, there's a lot of, and no one really had that experience of taking a food business like that and growing it into a national scale. And I know one of the things, because he was on the podcast back when it was live at Dailies, and one of the things that he said is that he wishes he would have started with distributing through Amazon earlier, because that would have brought him a steady stream of revenue. Instead, he was doing these grocery accounts, which are great, but what happened is he got a big grocery account, and at the same time he had a snack box account flake out on him and not pay, and it just killed his cash flow. He
didn't have the money to create the product.
Exactly. So he was running out of money. He didn't have enough revenue coming in. He had the orders to make the money, but not the money to make the orders. So it was such a catch-22, and he was looking for investors. It was really hard to come by at that time, and he just he eventually just said, I laid people off. I made as many crackers as I could, and that was it. And it's kind of sad, it's too bad. He's a pretty smart guy. Now he's doing graphic design for some people. So, he's doing fine. But when I interviewed him, I think he was just getting close to paying off all the debt from his venture. Yeah. It's man, that's not the way you want it to end,
No, it's heartbreaking actually, because he put so much into it. The majority of startups fail. You just have to kind of go into it knowing that. But yeah, when there's a lot of money involved, it's really scary. And I think what's lacking here, in the Wausau area or central Wisconsin, is the money. Yeah, there's definitely, you can always, get a loan and stuff. There's revolving loan funds, and there definitely are angel investors who are more willing to listen to startups and that sort of thing. But honestly, money is it's often not the most important part of starting a business. It is all these little things that I never knew about that Doyen honestly connected to me to. And that's how do I outsource payroll? How do I get a lawyer who's not going to charge me so much money because I have no money? Right. How do I incorporate? How do I, get a business banking account? What are co-founder documents? What do they look like? And what should they say? And there's all these business related, not even related to your product, that you just need contacts and people who are willing to give you free advice, free mentorship. I think I sat on the phone with my accountant for an hour, asking her probably what are the dumbest questions about what are payroll taxes. You know what I mean? These are just,
Right.
that doesn't cost money if you have someone who's willing to sit down with you
Right.
and answer those questions. But it's that support and that mentorship that is honestly the foundation. And then it's the little bit of money. I mean, obviously we are not a super capital intensive business because we don't manufacture a product. So we didn't need that kind of cash flow really early on. But yeah, that mentorship, the connections,
Yeah.
saying, I know this person, they can help you. I know, oh, this person knows this person, they can help you. It's incredible.
Did you connect with any of the other app developers in the area? Like I know there's a couple in Stevens Point. There was one called Pinpoints that was like it was sort of a marketing app where businesses could sign up to have details, and then you would, if you the user pulled it up on a map, you pulled up a map, it would point you like who has deals through Pinpoint. And then there was another one. There was another one for events. I can't recall the name off. Oh, Groove. It was called Groove. Okay. And those guys were out of points. And that was like that was a way like everyone could get the Groove app, and then no matter how they took or shared stuff from an event, it would all pop up, kind of gathered into one place. I know, and then I guess there's some other ones too that came up for when they had the Bright Star things up here. But if you connected with any of those people, or
So a little bit. So, Tim Kraus is a faculty member, the department chair of computer science at UW Stevens Point. I worked with him writing grants for him.
I think
so
I interviewed him.
He was like the first person I ever went to, even with this idea. He was the only tech person I knew. And he kind of just helped me wrap my head around what I was getting myself into in terms of the tech. And then I started getting connected more into the Madison startup ecosystem because it exists, and it doesn't really exist here.
Right.
And those people already know your needs as just an idea. And so that's how I started hearing more about tech people down in Madison.
What do you think it would take to bring that ecosystem up here? Like, you just need more people doing it, that kind of stuff. Like, how does that start? That's what I always wonder. Like, chicken or the egg kind of a thing, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know.
I don't know either.
I don't know. I think it's about bringing together those mentors, honestly, first, who are willing to give of their time and maybe a little bit of money to help get ideas off the ground.
Yeah.
But then I've kind of worked honestly backwards, kind of my way back up to Central Wisconsin. And so then, I always knew about Greg Wright and Create Portage County, and they're I think it's like a CW, Central Wisconsin Developers Group on Meetup. There's some developers who, again, this is all about talking one person to tell you about someone else to tell you about someone else, and so definitely connected with that group to know what kind of development skill sets there were in this area, and still kind of navigating that. But now that I've kind of found someone, my eyeballs aren't really on that part of the business. But I've heard even from my original contracted developer that they are so strapped for finding development talent that not even development shops can find developers. Wow. And so for someone like me, it's finding someone who is passionate about the topic, who has the time and finances in their life that they can work on this with you, and want to be a part of it.
So we're talking about a pretty small sliver of the Venn diagram there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I honestly, people will pay, and you have to pay a lot of good money to find a good developer. And so again, you have to find someone who just sees the either is just super passionate about the topic, thinks they can have a really cool impact on the tech, or wants to have like an equity stake and sees how they can make a lot of money by being a part of it. I mean, kind of those three things, I think, are kind of a draw versus someone sitting at a cubicle working for like a big company.
Yeah. Well, that's tough. I know, like, I think it was called Collaborative up in the Dudley Tower.
Oh, I remember seeing that.
Yeah. I think they've switched and now they're called CGI, but I know they were telling me like they grab people like a year out of like a year into college. They'll be like, you should come work here. Like, they're already recruiting, and they'll take people who are like 2 years in and say like, come start working here. We'll train you the rest of the way. We'll pay for you to keep going to school. Like, we need developers badly.
Yes.
And like their whole thing about coming here was, they called it on insourcing, I think, or something like that. They had a term for it, but it was basically, instead of sending jobs to like China or India or something, it was like, we'll just do it in the U.S., but we'll go somewhere like Wausome where the cost of living is way lower. And so we're still, we're kind of like splitting the difference between the two, and we still have people who are like at least on a close by time zone, because I think they were based out of Boston.
Okay.
And but I think that was the big challenge, is like actually finding the people to. I mean, they had a lot of developers, but we walked into a room of empty desks, and they said, we want all this full. Like, if we could fill this tomorrow, we would, because we have the work. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, talent shortage is kind of that's something like everyone from the tech world to like the cleaning company next door are struggling with. Like,
right.
the cleaning store next door was increasing in sales, and they've been slowly like decreasing their sales. They've been like saying no to customers and like ending contracts just because they can't get the workers. It's crazy.
Yeah, the talent, gaps and needs, and again, I think startup life, you have to go into it with a completely different mindset than a job, because so I think finding talent for a startup is just, it's so different than finding just talent to fill a role at an existing organization, because you just have to find someone that is in such a unique place in their life. They know they're not going to be making any money, right. Passion, self-motivated. I mean, it's just a unique kind of person, for sure.
Yeah, it's scary. One thing I think about is like with healthcare in the U.S., that's a big challenge, because you're really jumping off the cliff a little bit. You have to kind of worry about your health. In some other countries, you wouldn't have to worry about that. And when we talk about like stuff like, fixing our healthcare system, like that's a big part of it. Like that's helping foster innovation by providing the services for people, so when they make that leap, they can do it without worrying about what's gonna happen if they break their leg or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Health insurance does not come with being a startup.
Right.
Right. Yeah. You find other ways, and it's, Mm-hmm. It's hard. You have to be in a unique place in your life, or you just have to want something a little different. I think, again, thinking about consumerism, it's amazing what you can live without.
Right.
You really don't need that much. But obviously, yes, health benefits are really important. So that is something that you really need, especially if you have kids and family.
I agree. Well, where do you see? So do you think you might switch it from ERbin to BetterBin?
BetterBin, yeah. Except at this point, that domain costs $780.
Oh, dang!
So I haven't been able to purchase it yet. If anyone wants to help me crowdfund for that $780. No, yeah.
If you see Michelle, let her know which one you like better, ERbin or BetterBin.
BetterBin, yeah. At the end of the day, the name doesn't matter, but there's just a lot that comes with the marketing and the legal and that sort of thing. So where are we? I mean,
where do you want to see
where
this
are we, and where are we going?
Yeah.
I'm going to take this for as long as I have the energy to do it, and as long as it's the smart thing to do. I mean, you can always know when the writing is on the wall. But we just had an exhibit at the Wisconsin Integrated Waste Management Conference, which is basically a bunch of solid waste and recycling and organic waste diversion people coming together, and there's just so much support in that community for our work, to see the need and see where we can be. Mark, blanking on his last name, from Outagamie, Brown County, I'm sorry. He is just people like him who've been in the industry for so long and are so willing to be like, Michelle, I see this. Like, this is a solution that we need. You know, I have to listen to people like that and keep going. As long as I have people telling me it's a need that they have, I'm going to put my time and passion and energy into it, because I really think it can be something. But we're so early. We're just at the very beginning, even though it's almost been 2 years. Yeah.
It's got to be weird to think about that, huh?
It seems like yesterday. I never know what day it is. I never know what time it is. I never, I felt so bad. I forgot my 9-year wedding anniversary like 2 weeks ago. I thought,
gosh.
and even when I did, I thought it was 8 years. You know, you're just, your mind, you're so dedicated to what's like in front of you at that, what fire is burning at that immediate moment. But I think we have a really great team. I think that I know people in the industry who are excited about this and, you know, have been patient with me, but want to see, you know, a really cool product, you know, sooner rather than later. And as long as I have those people and the support from like my family to keep pushing, then I will.
Nice. Well, this has been fun having this podcast with you. Yeah,
this has been great. It's you don't always get a ton of time to be like introspective and thinking about the inside out instead of the outside in, and so thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, I think it's fun just to be able to like sit down and have a long conversation with people. You know, I just don't think we get to do that enough in society. So you had asked me about like why I started the podcast. So that's one of them. Like I would go to these interviews and have these really great interviews with really interesting people, and I'd be like, oh, they're only going to see a little tiny part of it in the story. Like, I really fell in love with podcasts, and that was fairly recent, in the last 4 or 5 years that I really took to podcasts. That I was like, well, I'm basically doing a podcast, right? Like I'm having these interviews. This is basically a podcast. I just need to record it, which apparently we found out today was a little more difficult than it might sound on paper, but yeah, and I was like, let's do this. And so I bought a microphone and plugged it into my laptop and started it. And, you know, it's kind of evolved now. I have a producer and a studio, and my producer's away now and made me try to figure out the tech side of it. But yeah, it's fun. It's exciting.
Yeah. I mean, you're just proving, again, if you want to make something happen, like you are the only person that can do that. And
I know I really have to stop. I keep it was funny that was the year I started this. I also started my blog, frugalwheels.com. And just earlier that year, I was like, I got to stop doing things. Like I have too many things. And then I went ahead and started 2 more projects. So hopefully this is it for a while.
I like this project. I'm excited for people to hear the story, because
me too.
If it inspires someone to dive in or even to be a part of this with me, oh my gosh, come.
Yeah, so if people want to get involved or they want to follow ERbin, how should they do it? What should they do?
Yeah, email me. So right now our website is ERbin.USA.com, ERbinusa.com. It's ERbin app on Facebook or Instagram. I'm sure there's like someone, if you live in Wausau, there's got to be someone who knows me, or someone who's like, you know, 2 people away from me that can tell you how to get in contact with me.
And anyone can download it on the App Store.
Yeah, they can download it again. Google, you know, I hesitate saying that to people because you're not going to get the instructions that are potentially specific to your community. But if you want to see the current user interface, check it out now. But more importantly, check it out in like a month, because it'll look completely different. Right. Like completely.
In a month?
Yeah. Wow. Heck, in 2 weeks it will look completely different.
Big things coming, huh?
Yes, big things.
So check it out now so you can compare it in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Most importantly, if you want to be an investor in this work, I'm willing to take your money and make money for you on that.
Nice.
So no, very seriously, we are doing crowdfunding, seeking out some friends and family investment, and that means anywhere from $25 to $25,000. So we're trying to look to raise about $150,000.
Huh.
Yeah.
How are the returns? How do the returns work on that?
Oh, that's a great question, Brian. And that's it for a whole nother.
That's a whole nother podcast.
That's a whole nother podcast.
Right.
But yeah.
All right. Well, I'm BC Kowalski here with Michelle Goetsch.
Yeah.
And it's been fun.
Thanks for having me.
Check us out on iTunes and Spotify. Make sure you give us a like. And if you're watching on YouTube, give us a like and subscribe to our channel. And we now have a Facebook page. It blew up to 350 likes in like a week or two. It was kind of crazy.
Exciting.
Didn't think that would happen. I was debating whether to even have one. So, because it's so hard to reach people. But when it blows up that much, it's even a small percentage of that is still quite a few people. And with a little boost, we should be able to get out to a lot of people. So you can follow us there. Otherwise, I'm BC_Kowalski on Twitter and Instagram. So, hey, thanks so much, Michelle. This was fun.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is awesome.